In fact,
why is it not dirty money?
Because I earned it.
Something big just shook the royal world. Prince Harry has moved to Montecito, but it's not just a change of scenery. His wife, Meghan Markle, is now linked to Jeffrey Epstein, and it's sending shockwaves everywhere. Their $100 million deal with Netflix is reportedly at risk, and even Harry's royal titles could be in danger. What really happened behind closed doors? How far could this scandal go? The sudden shift in Montecito. Life in Montecito did not begin as a random choice for Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. It was the result of a long and very public break from royal life in the United Kingdom. To understand the quiet shift that later raised concern, it is important to first understand why they left and how they rebuilt their lives. Harry was born into the royal system. His role came with structure, public duty, and financial support tied to the monarchy. Meghan entered that system after their marriage, but her experience inside it was very different. From early on, there were reports of pressure, intense media attention, and personal strain. Over time, both Harry and Meghan made it clear that they were struggling with the level of control and public exposure that came with royal life. In early 2020, they made a major decision. They stepped back from their roles as senior working members of the royal family. This move was widely known as their exit from royal duties. The decision was not simple. It involved discussions with senior members of the family, including Queen Elizabeth II and King Charles III, who was then the Prince of Wales. After this decision, several changes followed. They lost official royal duties and no longer represented the monarchy in the same way. Their financial structure also changed. They stopped receiving public funding that had supported their official work. This funding had been part of a system that covered expenses for senior royals. Without it, they had to become financially independent. There were also changes to their use of titles and roles. Harry and Meghan kept their Duke and Duchess titles. However, they were no longer allowed to use the term associated with royal service in a working capacity. They also stepped away from military and honorary roles that had been part of Harry's identity for years. This shift marked a clear separation from the system he had known since birth. Their move did not go directly to California. At first, they spent time in Canada, where they stayed in a private residence. This period was short but important. It allowed them to begin adjusting to a new kind of life. Soon after, they relocated to the United States and settled in Montecito, a place known for privacy and distance from constant media activity. In Montecito, they purchased a large home in a quiet area. The environment offered space and control, which were both important after years of public pressure. Their daily life became more private. They focused on family, raising their children, and building a new professional path. To support themselves, they entered into major business agreements. One of the most discussed deals was with Netflix. This agreement focused on producing content, including documentaries and series. They also signed a deal with Spotify to create podcasts. Meghan later launched a podcast series that focused on social themes and public discussions. Over time, not all projects continued as expected. Their agreement with Spotify came to an end after a period of limited output. This led to public discussion about expectations and delivery. Their Netflix projects continued, but the level of attention around them changed. Early excitement became more measured as audiences waited for consistent content. Harry also released a memoir titled Spare. The book gave detailed insight into his life, his relationship with the royal family, and his personal struggles. It received global attention and strong sales. At the same time, it increased tension with members of the royal family, as it included personal details that had not been publicly shared before. Then, almost overnight, the conversation changed. The rumor that sparked a firestorm. Life in Montecito was already tense, but a new shadow had begun to creep into the narrative. Meghan Markle was no longer just a royal living in semi-privacy. Her name became linked to a network that had been under intense global scrutiny for years. The connection was with Jeffrey Epstein, a man whose influence stretched across politics, business, and elite society. This was no ordinary association. It was a link that could change everything. Meghan's connection to Epstein was not direct in the way most people imagine. She had attended several high-profile events where Epstein's circle of associates were present. These events were often charitable or networking functions, But the overlap placed her within a broader social web, already watched closely by the media. Investigators, journalists, and online observers began mapping these intersections. The result was a growing perception that Meghan had been operating in spaces where Epstein's influence was strong. The implications were immediate. Any association with Epstein carried high risk. His arrest and subsequent death had already put countless public figures under pressure. Prince Andrew had faced enormous consequences for his documented ties. Businesses, foundations, and public figures across the globe were examined for prior connections. Meghan Markle's inclusion in this narrative amplified attention on her and her husband, the prince. The public scrutiny intensified because the stakes were extraordinary. Epstein's network was notorious for secrecy, wealth, and influence. Being linked even tangentially meant that questions about judgment, safety, and moral responsibility followed. Every prior appearance, every photographed handshake or shared stage became a potential point of investigation. Media coverage dissected these moments, analyzing body language, timing, and proximity to controversial figures. Observers began reading tension into her expressions, interpreting subtle gestures as guilt, discomfort, or calculated awareness. For Meghan and the prince, the fallout extended beyond reputation. Their business agreements, including media contracts, became sensitive. Projects that had once been celebrated were now scrutinized for connections, funding sources, and potential conflicts of interest. Every deal, public appearance, or partnership was evaluated in light of the new attention. Negotiations, interviews, and content production now carried additional weight, requiring careful framing to avoid escalation. The nature of public reaction was complex. Some observers accepted the connection as a sign of caution, a reminder of how closely the powerful are watched. Others saw it as a scandal waiting to unfold. The scrutiny extended not only to Meghan, but to anyone linked with her professional or social environment. It became a chain reaction, where proximity alone created pressure. Regardless of verified involvement, the story's tension also rested on potential consequences. Legal authorities, investigators, and journalists had access to data and associations that could turn peripheral connections into major stories. Reputation could be impacted long before any formal conclusion. For a high-profile royal couple seeking independence and stability in Montecito, the stakes were clear. Any misstep, exposure, or misunderstanding could jeopardize projects, contracts, and public trust. The financial independence they had built through media deals and content creation suddenly existed alongside a precarious vulnerability. Even private life was affected. Security protocols tightened, personal movements were monitored more closely, and the couple's social interactions were scrutinized. Ordinary family life became a strategic challenge. The Prince and Meghan Markle were no longer just managing privacy, they were managing perception. Every appearance, every interaction, every public statement had to account for the wider shadow cast by Epstein's network. And once those shadows spread, no one connected even loosely escaped scrutiny. Epstein, the shadow over the powerful. The name Jeffrey Epstein carries a weight that goes far beyond one individual. His story became one of the most disturbing and widely discussed cases involving wealth, influence, and power. He was known as a financier, but his reputation changed completely after serious criminal allegations came into public view. His case shook global confidence in how powerful people are held accountable. Epstein had built connections over many years. He moved in circles that included politicians, business leaders, and well-known public figures. These connections were often social, professional, or linked through shared events. His ability to access these spaces raised serious questions later. People began to ask how someone with such influence was able to operate for so long without full exposure. In 2019, he was arrested on federal charges related to serious crimes. This moment brought intense global attention. The case quickly became a symbol of how power and wealth can protect individuals from early consequences. Many people felt that justice had been delayed for too long. His arrest created a wave of investigation, discussion, and public anger. Shortly after his arrest, Epstein passed away in custody. His death added another layer of controversy. It ended the possibility of a full trial, which many believed would have revealed more details about his actions and connections. Instead of closure, it created more questions. People began to focus not only on his crimes, but also on the network around him. This is where the situation became wider and more complex. Names of individuals who had interacted with Epstein began to appear in media reports and public discussions. Some of these connections were confirmed through records, while others were based on claims or associations. The difference between verified links and speculation became difficult for many people to track. One of the most prominent figures affected was Prince Andrew. His association with Epstein led to intense public scrutiny. Over time, this pressure resulted in major consequences. He stepped back from public royal duties and lost many of his official roles. His situation showed how serious the impact of association could be, even without a criminal conviction in the same case. Other public figures also faced attention. Business leaders, politicians, and celebrities found their past interactions examined in detail. In some cases, these connections were limited or indirect. However, once a name appeared in connection with Epstein, it often became part of a larger narrative. This narrative did not always separate confirmed facts from speculation. This created a pattern that continues to shape public discussion. One key element is guilt by association. When a person is linked, even loosely, to a controversial figure, public perception can change quickly. This happens even if there is no direct involvement in wrongdoing. The presence of a connection becomes enough to raise suspicion. Another important factor is reputation damage without formal charges. Many individuals who were mentioned in discussions were never charged with crimes related to Epstein. However, their public image was still affected. Once a connection enters public awareness, it can remain part of a person's reputation for a long time. The role of media and online platforms is also critical. News organizations often report on confirmed facts, but they also cover ongoing investigations and public interest topics. At the same time, social media allows unverified claims to spread quickly. This creates a mix of accurate information and speculation. For the public, it becomes difficult to separate legal reality from public narrative, and once those shadows spread, no one connected, even loosely, escapes scrutiny. Harry under pressure. The storm had shifted. Where once the attention had focused primarily on Meghan Markle, it now fully encompassed Prince Harry. Being married to her placed him directly in the center of an escalating network of scrutiny. Every action, every public appearance, every subtle gesture was observed, interpreted, and dissected. Harry's life, already complicated by his departure from official royal duties, became even more complex under the weight of public expectation and the Epstein-associated scrutiny that now hovered over the couple. His response was measured. Publicly, Harry remained mostly silent. He offered few comments and avoided direct engagement with the growing speculation. In a world where every word can be dissected for hidden meaning, silence became a double-edged sword. Observers interpreted restraint in multiple ways. Some saw it as caution, a protective measure to shield his family from unnecessary exposure. Others saw it as evasiveness, evidence of discomfort or even guilt by association. The silence itself became part of the narrative, feeding discussion as much as any statement ever could. Appearances became carefully orchestrated events. When Harry stepped into public spaces, body language was scrutinized. Observers noted tension in posture, measured expressions, and controlled gestures. Even casual interactions were interpreted as signals, either signs of strain from external pressures or deliberate attempts to maintain composure under an intense spotlight. Small details, like the way he interacted with security personnel or the way he positioned himself alongside Meghan, were analyzed as part of a larger story of distance, caution, and calculated presence. Media analysis extended to every event. Interviews, speeches, and public outings were dissected for subtle cues. A brief pause, a downward gaze, or a hesitated response was presented as evidence of inner conflict. In private moments, captured inadvertently by photographers or video, observers drew conclusions about his relationship with Meghan, the stress of public attention, and the mental weight of the Epstein-associated scrutiny that now hovered over the couple. The narrative painted him as someone balancing duty, protection, and personal concern against the relentless gaze of the world. This pressure was not only psychological. Harry was suddenly navigating a landscape where personal relationships, public perception, and professional engagements were under simultaneous evaluation. Every meeting with media executives, every appearance at charitable events, and every announcement related to their content company became an exercise in risk management. The implications of association with Meghan's controversial connection created a continuous need for careful planning. Missteps could lead to amplified headlines, reputational damage, or jeopardize projects. The strain was visible not just to the public, but in the subtle adjustments of daily life. Security protocols were increased, social interactions limited, and public movements scheduled with precision. Family life, once a private refuge, now required strategic management. Harry's protective instincts were heightened, both for himself and for Meghan, ensuring that their children remained insulated from the intense global scrutiny. Every choice became a balance between normalcy and safety, privacy and unavoidable attention. Yet even in this constrained environment, Harry maintained a degree of independence. He continued professional collaborations, philanthropic work, and selective public engagement. The challenge was that none of these actions could exist in isolation. Each was immediately filtered through the lens of the Epstein-linked controversy surrounding Meghan Markle. Decisions that previously would have been routine were now carefully weighed for public interpretation, risk exposure, and the potential for misrepresentation. But the pressure wasn't just personal, it was financial. The $100 million fallout. The consequences of the storm were not only personal, they quickly became financial. Prince Harry and Meghan Markle had stepped away from royal life with the expectation of building independence. Part of that independence relied on high-value media deals and partnerships, including projects with platforms like Netflix. Those agreements were carefully negotiated, worth hundreds of millions, and designed to fund both their lifestyle and charitable ambitions. But in the wake of controversy, the perception of risk began to rise. Speculation immediately emerged. Industry insiders and journalists questioned whether the association with Jeffrey Epstein's network, even indirect or perceived, might jeopardize active or future contracts. Deals that had once been celebrated as groundbreaking were suddenly under scrutiny. Media analysts debated whether streaming platforms or brand partners would quietly distance themselves to avoid reputational risk. The very real value of these partnerships became entangled with public perception, sometimes before any confirmed impact could be measured. The nature of brand partnerships made this uncertainty more fragile. Multi-million-dollar contracts with streaming platforms, production companies, and corporate collaborators often include clauses related to public conduct, controversy, or reputational damage. While none of these contracts were immediately canceled, the mere association with high-profile controversy put pressure on negotiations, approvals, and release timelines. Executives, aware of the global spotlight, were reportedly cautious about moving forward without considering public sentiment. Inside industry circles, whispers traveled faster than formal statements. Some suggested that certain projects were paused or being re-evaluated. Others indicated that internal discussions were underway about risk management strategies. Even minor adjustments delaying a launch, reviewing content, or reconsidering marketing campaigns reflected the influence of external pressures. The narrative had become clear. Controversy alone could shift the terms of business, whether or not it involved legal ramifications. Public opinion amplified the financial pressure. Fans, critics, and observers debated the merits of the couple's work versus the cloud of association. Social media discussions, news commentary, and opinion pieces circulated widely, affecting brand perception and investor confidence. Streaming platforms and production companies, even when operating on contractually secured terms, had to consider the optics of public alignment. The perception of risk can influence decisions just as powerfully as actual risk, and beyond money, something even bigger was being questioned. A title on the line? The scrutiny now extended to matters of legacy and symbolism, royal titles and status. Prince Harry and Meghan Markle had already stepped back from official duties, relinquishing their roles as senior royals. Their move to Montecito and pursuit of private ventures had already strained traditional expectations. But as the Epstein-associated controversy grew, questions arose about whether titles themselves were at risk, not just in practice, but symbolically and constitutionally. King Charles III, as the reigning monarch, had the authority to shape titles and roles within the royal family. Discussions emerged in media and public forums about the boundaries of that authority. Could the Duke and Duchess retain honorifics under such scrutiny, Would public outrage compel formal or symbolic action? Experts noted that while the removal of titles is rare, the royal household always moves cautiously, balancing legal authority, tradition, and public perception. Public pressure amplified the tension. Social media campaigns, opinion polls, and commentary columns debated whether Harry and Meghan should keep their titles. Headlines implied that association with controversial networks could make their positions untenable. Even if the monarchy did not act, perception alone threatened to undermine the symbolic authority of their roles. The combination of global attention and online speculation created a climate where every formal or informal reference to their status was analyzed. Constitutional reality complicates matters. Titles are not purely symbolic. They are intertwined with legal and historical precedents. While the sovereign technically has discretion over honorifics and styles, doing so carries political and institutional weight. A formal removal would send a clear message, but risk backlash, both domestically and internationally. The monarchy's response was inevitably measured, cautious, and procedural, prioritizing long-term stability over immediate reaction to public clamor. The stakes were personal as well. For Harry and Meghan, titles represent more than ceremony. They signal identity, family history, and public perception. The threat of losing or being stripped of these symbols, even hypothetically, added emotional weight to the ongoing pressure. Every public appearance, interview, or social engagement was now framed not only by contracts or controversy, but also by what it meant for their standing within the royal institution. Yet, while institutions moved carefully, weighing tradition and legality, the internet moved recklessly. Online discussion, viral commentary, and global speculation operated without nuance. Every perceived misstep became fodder for debate. The combination of symbolism, tradition, and public discourse created a tension that was both high-profile and deeply personal. Harry and Meghan's lives had become a constant negotiation between their roles as private individuals, public figures, and members of a royal lineage. Titles, once a source of identity and prestige, were now part of a larger conversation about responsibility, reputation, and perception. And, in the ever-watchful public eye, every detail was magnified. The internet courtroom. The scrutiny did not remain confined to traditional media. It moved faster, wider, and more relentlessly online. Social media became the courtroom, and the public the jury. Every post, tweet, and video had the potential to influence perception, creating a digital arena where Harry and Meghan Markle were constantly evaluated. The scale of the attention was unprecedented. Ordinary audiences suddenly felt empowered to interpret actions, weigh connections, and render judgments, often without evidence or context. The Epstein-associated controversy, now connected to Meghan, amplified every online discussion. Followers, critics, and casual observers debated every past appearance, every interaction with elites, and every contractual negotiation. Even carefully curated projects with Netflix, Spotify, or other partners were analyzed for hidden meaning or risk. Social media created a feedback loop. Speculation generated discussion, discussion generated more speculation, and the cycle continued endlessly. In this courtroom, there were no jury instructions, no defense, and no rules beyond attention and virality. Audiences also applied moral judgment. Online threads frequently paired legal discussion with ethical evaluation. Questions about responsibility, judgment, and proximity to power were weighed alongside perceived actions. The combination of high-profile figures, elite networks, and controversial associations created a perfect storm. For Harry and Meghan, even private gestures, vacations, charitable initiatives, or family outings were framed as evidence in a court that did not exist in reality but felt real to millions. The intensity of the internet courtroom created constant pressure. Every decision required consideration of public perception, every step was evaluated in advance, and every statement risked misinterpretation. Strategic communication, security measures, and media management became essential. The couple's private life was no longer private. Their social circles, public engagements, and professional projects were now under continuous global review. The digital courtroom never closed, and the jury never rested. And in the middle of it all, one question kept coming up. What exactly were Harry and Meghan trying to protect? And what could they afford to lose next? Escape, strategy, or survival? By now, the narrative had shifted from speculation to analysis. Observers debated whether Prince Harry and Meghan Markle were fleeing, strategizing, or simply trying to survive under unprecedented scrutiny. Every move, from relocation to media appearances, was interpreted as part of a larger plan or a desperate attempt to shield themselves from consequences. The constant global attention magnified the stakes, turning ordinary choices into symbolic gestures. Relocation to Montecito was now seen as more than just a lifestyle decision. It was framed as a calculated move to create physical and psychological distance from the royal institution, the UK media, and the relentless court of public opinion. Their residences, travel patterns, and security measures became part of the narrative. Was it safe? Was it freedom? Was it an escape? Each theory gained traction because visibility had replaced privacy, leaving little room for nuance. The cost of constant scrutiny extended beyond perception. Emotional and psychological strain was compounded by the relentless evaluation of every word, appearance, and project. Professional endeavors, even carefully managed media contracts, were subjected to public moral judgment. Personal interactions, from family gatherings to charitable events, were interpreted as calculated messaging. The line between strategy and survival blurred, leaving Harry and Meghan navigating an environment where every action could be misread or weaponized. Rumors, once confined to gossip, had the power to reshape reality. Associations, even indirect or circumstantial, were amplified into perceived truths. Discussions online and in media outlets created a feedback loop, influencing the decisions of executives, partners, and allies. Contracts could be renegotiated, charitable engagements reconsidered, and public trust recalibrated, all based on perception. In this environment, the couple's reputation became both currency and liability. The global attention also forced them to define their own narrative. Strategic communication, selective interviews, and controlled projects were necessary tools. Each step was deliberate, measured, and designed to maintain a balance between privacy, independence, and public engagement. Yet, no strategy could fully shield them from the amplified power of collective perception. The couple's life had become a continuous negotiation between reality, expectation, and speculation. The royal response. Behind the palace gates, the storm was being watched closely. The royal family was aware of every ripple caused by the Epstein-associated scrutiny surrounding Meghan Markle and its effect on Prince Harry. While the couple had chosen a path of independence in Montecito, their actions and associations had reverberations across the monarchy, its reputation, and its global influence. Within these walls, every public statement, every move in the media, and every social media discussion was analyzed for potential risk. King Charles III faced a delicate challenge. He needed to protect the integrity of the institution while balancing family ties. The Epstein connection, even indirect or perceived, threatened to draw the monarchy into a high-profile controversy with international ramifications. Advisors stressed the importance of measured communication and careful observation. Public statements had to be precise. Every nuance could be amplified, misinterpreted, or weaponized in global media. The king's approach was cautious but deliberate, designed to maintain stability while signaling that misconduct or association with scandal would not go unnoticed. Other senior royals watched closely as well. The household was acutely aware of how fast social media could escalate minor associations into major controversies. Protocols for engagement were reviewed, and personal staff were tasked with monitoring both public and private discourse. Even casual commentary or offhand remarks from courtiers could be seized upon and circulated widely. The family's collective strategy emphasized restraint, dignity, and a measured approach to avoid escalating a crisis that was already intensifying outside the palace walls. There was also a clear understanding of perception versus reality. While Harry and Meghan's media projects, independence, and public statements had created tension, the royal family had to distinguish between actionable risk and speculative controversy. Advisors repeatedly emphasized that the monarchy's response must be anchored in confirmed information rather than the viral narratives dominating the internet. Still, the speed of public judgment often forced attention to matters before all facts could be clarified. Financial implications weighed heavily as well. The royal household had already adjusted allowances, stripped senior duties, and reduced funding following the couple's decision to step back from official roles. Contracts, engagements, and public appearances were monitored for reputational exposure. The Epstein-related scrutiny added another layer of complexity, potentially impacting relationships with sponsors, foundations, and international partners. Every external engagement involving Harry or Meghan risked reflecting on the institution. Public opinion played a central role. Polls, news coverage, and social media commentary were evaluated by palace strategists. Analysts studied global reactions to gauge how narratives around association with controversial networks might influence the monarchy's overall standing. Every headline, viral thread, and commentary video was reviewed not only for content but for potential long-term effect on institutional credibility. At the same time, the royal family had to manage internal dynamics. Private conversations, family meetings, and advisory sessions focused on both immediate containment and long-term positioning. Loyalty, concern for personal safety, and the maintenance of decorum were carefully balanced. There was a constant tension between empathy for family members and the responsibility to protect the institution from collateral fallout. Despite the careful monitoring, the family's approach remained largely silent in public. Statements were rare, measured, and crafted to convey stability without escalation. The choice of silence, however, was interpreted in multiple ways by the media and the public. Some saw it as restraint and dignity. Others perceived distance or judgment. Even non-action became a signal, feeding the larger narrative surrounding Harry, Meghan, and the wider controversy. Ultimately, the royal reaction demonstrated a calculated blend of observation, strategy, and caution. The monarchy moved deliberately, understanding the fragility of reputation and the speed of modern scrutiny. Decisions were guided by principle, institutional responsibility, and the recognition that a single misstep could have global implications. Behind the gates, the family was united in one understanding. In an era where social media can act as judge and jury, restraint and control were their most powerful tools. Even as Harry and Meghan navigated independence and public scrutiny in Montecito, the royal household remained vigilant, calculating, and quietly influencing the narrative from afar. The monarchy was aware that while the internet moved recklessly, its own measured response would define the lasting perception of both family and institution. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe, and also click the next video shown on your screen.